Assalamualaikum. My name is Chen, and before we begin with today's video assignment, allow me to introduce my group mates. In this video, we will be presenting a critical review on the published papers pertaining the issues of Murabaha contract. Over the years, many have argued that Murabaha resembles the normal debt contract in conventional banking systems due to its dominance, which calls into question the notion that Islamic finance is the alternative to interest-based conventional financial systems. As a result, various new complexities are introduced into the Murabaha contract, and this has obviously sparked a huge discussion among Islamic scholars as well as Islamic finance experts. Therefore, my groupmates and I attempt to put forward the issues that have been highlighted in the reviewed papers. And towards the end, we will highlight and propose several recommendations to further enhance our perspective on the issues pertaining to the Murabaha financing contract. What is a Murabaha contract? It's a cost-plus sale contract whereby an Islamic bank will buy a product on behalf of the client and sells it back to him at an agreed-upon markup price, which will be paid in installments.
Moving on to the methodology part, firstly, our main aim is to provide critical review on published papers related to Murabaha contract and to highlight the main findings and issues being discussed from the perspective of financial institutions in Malaysia and Indonesia. The first article takes a qualitative approach which aligns with the second article's depiction of legal controversy and debate around the Murabaha contract and its use by Islamic banks. Article 2 gathered and examined classic and modern Murabaha to determine their genuine meaning and value, as well as to settle opposing viewpoints and critiques of the current technique. Finally, Article 3 conducted a quantitative study in Indonesia to make criteria for Murabaha contract processing by Islamic banks, which involved multiple stages. In addition, they employed qualitative analysis to model the factors, as well as a sample of 14 Islamic banks business units, 3 regulatory viewpoints, 5 academicians, and 2 Islamic scholars.
Issues from the first article. Murabaha financing entails a slew of criteria, non-compliance with which may render the transaction haram from an Islamic legal standpoint. To justify, the author highlighted how Murabaha trade financing becomes prone to misuse due to the participation of agency, which inevitably allow the client to acquire the products on behalf of the bank and take charge himself. Issue from the second article. According to this literature, the issues of modern Murabaha was on banks' avoidance of risk associated with ownership and possession. When the first theory of Islamic banking was proposed, the bank was supposed to be active during the search for possible goods, contacting the dealer, supplying and transferring it to the client. While in modern Murabaha practices, banks try to avoid all risks related to the ownership and possession of the object before its final sale to the client. This approach may be consistent with conventional banking standards, but it contradicts with the legitimate gain principle of Islamic contract law. The last article, presence of contract trap. The author of the article specifically mentioned that the current Murabaha purchase order procedure practice in Indonesia is the binding and installment method. If the asset never comes into the bank's custody, it is believed that the Murabaha purchase order might easily fall into merging hawala, aka debt transfer, with purchase sales. Amending the transaction by properly documenting asset flow from the supplier to the bank and bank to the customer was suggested by the author to remedy this contract trap.
From our study, different papers have different findings on topic of Murabaha. The finding for article of Murabaha financing revisited the contemporary debate on its use in Islamic bank are that modern Murabaha different from traditional Murabaha, and it is not suitable to use traditional mazhab-based fiqh methodology to make modern Murabaha legal. But it doesn't mean that modern Murabaha is illegal. On the other hand, the finding for issues in the application of Murabaha sale and banking, financing consumer goods and trade are that Murabaha prone to errors and can be misused in various ways. There are some limitations and practical implications that can be found throughout the study. The limitation mentioned in article of contract agreement model for Murabaha financing in Indonesia Islamic banking is that author only focus on one type of Murabaha purchase order, which is binding and installment, although there are 2 of them. Therefore, bank need to reveal how much for the equal assets, and there need to be a clear position of buyer and seller. For the issues in the application of Murabaha sale in banking, financing consumer goods and trade, there was no limitation found since it gives a complete description of the issues on Murabaha. The practical implication for both papers is the same, which are price transparency, margin disclosure, and transparent transfer of ownership should be the attention of financial intermediaries. On the other hand, limitation in article Murabaha financing revisited the contemporary debate on its use in Islamic bank are those who oppose Murabaha not able to provide the reason for the opposition, and those who support Murabaha not able to tell why Murabaha is good. That's why contemporary Murabaha need to be treated as a nominalist contract that must be judged according to Islamic contracts law basic principle to justify its legality, rather than combining views of different legal schools.
So, to conclude our presentation, the main purpose of our review paper is to highlight recent research on Murabaha contract issues. After numerous issues on the Murabaha contract have been surfaced, we could say that further research should consider to look into a less controversial financing method that encourage long-term investment. And finally, we also suggest that upcoming research could focus on equity-based approach of trade financing such as musyarakah. That's it from us. Jazakumullah khairan. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.